Hello there, welcome to Showcase. Istanbul Modern was founded as Turkey's first modern and contemporary art museum back in 2004. But its building wasn't designed as an art space, instead it was a customs warehouse. So the museum moved to a different venue until the building gained a more suitable, futuristic and solid structure. Now it's back at its original location and its architect says this time it's here to stay. Istanbul Modern is back at its old but unique location next to the sparkling waters of the European side of the Bosphorus with a brand new building. And it offers many things alongside lots of artworks. It's a significant spot for architecture enthusiasts as it's industrial yet elegant, designed by world-renowned architect Renzo Piano. And the inspiration comes from nothing other than the water and light reflections of Bosphorus. The building also has fantastic views across the water towards the Anatolian side, Princess Islands, and the historical peninsula. Plus, it's connected to Galata Port, one of the city's trendier spots. During the museum's opening, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said, "With its new building, Istanbul Modern fills a great void as it strengthens the relationship between society and art."
The world will get to know Istanbul in a very different way with Istanbul Modern. I believe that the new building of Istanbul Modern will add great value to our city, and it will continue to be one of the most prestigious and contemporary art centres in Turkey.
Renzo Piano is known for works such as London's Shard, the Pompidou Center in Paris, and the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York. He said during the news conference that creating a museum isn't an easy task. So, he approached the project knowing the pressures that come with designing a building that could reshape both the city and its artistic direction for future generations. Plus, he had to think about possible major earthquakes as Istanbul stands on an active fault line. That's why the building stands on a grid of steel-braced concrete columns.
Architecture is very much about so many things. It's about practicalities. It's about simple things like making solid building lasting forever. Very simple. And this is what has been here. Look at that building. It's solidly built. And the solidity is part of the semantic expression of the building. It's part of that. Solid and flying. Not easy. And this is something that I have to remind every time, because it's a part of our duty.
Spanning 10,500 square meters, the museum offers a space for exhibitions, film screenings, and a permanent collection of works by Turkey's most important modern and contemporary artists such as Fahrel Nisa Zeid, Kuzgun Acar, and Refik Anadol. Also, here are 22 portraits on display by Palme d'Or winner director Nuri Bilge Ceylan. Another temporary exhibition, Floating Islands, brings more than 280 works together. Always here showcases a selection of works by Turkish women artists. The transparent ground floor made of reinforced glass includes a library, a cafe, a store, and educational workshops, as the museum executives emphasize their priority will be much about education for children and young people, alongside promoting female artists' visibility and introducing Turkish art to the world.
One of Istanbul Modern's most important fields of activity since its foundation continues to be a top priority in our new building. We have allocated more space for education in line with our mission of creating art encounters for our audiences of all ages.
Meeting a friend, seeing a work of art, or enjoying the view of the Bosphorus. Istanbul Modern is the new cultural center where everyone can find something for themselves. And it seems that it's already making the city even more beautiful inside and out. Esra Dürüst, TRT World, Istanbul. London's Victoria and Albert Museum is gearing up to celebrate divas in a new exhibition. It highlights the talent, creativity, and influence of iconic performers from opera, stage, pop music, and film. Let's take a look.
Inspired by some of the world's best-known performers, the Diva exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum features about 60 costumes and 250 items used by stage stars. Some date back to the 19th century, and many are on display for the first time. The exhibition presents not only flashy items, but also explores the notion of diva.
I was fascinated with the term and how it originated in opera as goddess, and then how it had become negative, and then looking at a story where we could reclaim the diva as a positive, because it has been adopted and adapted in so many ways. It's such an intriguing kind of idea.
The exhibition has two sections. Act 1 offers historical context, and Act 2 focuses on major modern-day artists. The objects tell the story of the creation of a diva. The show delves into activism and performers' sway on social issues like equality and civil rights. Their voice was not just for performance.
It's really important with the diva. The diva has a strong sense of self and attitude and knowing their voice and how to use their voice. And we really wanted to show that story, the story of their struggle, the story of where they've given their voice to change from activism to global feminism. So it's a sort of celebration of that side of the diva, as well as the feathers and the sequins.
Highlights of the exhibition are the dress Marilyn Monroe wore in Some Like It Hot, outfits made for Cher, Tina Turner, and Maria Callas. And Elton John's 50th birthday costume with its colossal wig and train is also on display. Diva will stay open until April next year.
A new exhibition at London's Hayward Gallery highlights art that looks at psychological and spiritual responses to the climate crisis. The hope is to inspire joy, empathy, and social activism.
Dear Earth, Art and Hope in a Time of Crisis is an exhibition that features more than a dozen of artists that explore the effects of the climate crisis. The main inspiration for the exhibition is Nigerian-born artist Otobong Ganga's idea that caring is a form of resistance. Nganga's art is also a part of the display. Artists were asked to recontextualize climate change and form a connection with Earth.
You will see drawings, paintings, installation, music, embroidery, huge sculptures, a living sculpture of pyramid of flowers, which Agnes Dennis has done, and outside eyes of extinct birds. So it's very much about fauna, animals, people, and our world today.
Artists have been assigned separate rooms, but the theme intertwines them into a whole that provokes dialogue. US artist Agnes Deans has once again designed a living pyramid planted with grasses and wildflowers. And Jenny Nedler's sculpture, Birds Watching 3, shows the eyes of 100 different species that are near extinction.
I feel this exhibition is important for younger generations too, that people have eco-anxiety, that we don't want to add to that. Actually, anything we want to actually talk about, have a talking point, a conversation. So the exhibition is laid out like a conversation. All the artists in the shows have their own room, their own constellations of practice, but each is in conversation with another artist. So it's a welcoming environment to discuss these issues.
The show once again voices environmental concerns, but the tone is not all doom and gloom.
All the past shows and the shows that are coming are very important to tackle these issues. This exhibition takes a slightly different route. It becomes a more emotional, caring response, a personal response. Like Dear Earth, for example, we're trying to fall back in love with our planet as a relative, to connect, that we have compassion for the animals that are dying. So I think this show slightly offers a compassionate, hopeful way forward. That, like I say, we do not shy away from those issues, but we're offering people to not look at the hard facts, but maybe look at behavioural change, maybe look at artistic ways forward.
The exhibition will stay open until September 3rd.
The new Mission Impossible shapes up to be one of the potential blockbusters of the year. But as Tom Cruise has recently found out, his mega-budget spectacle will have a rocky road to fight its way to the top. Here's why.
Our lives are the sum of our choices. And we cannot escape the past.
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning finds Tom Cruise and his IMF team try to locate a lethal weapon before the villains do.
The world is changing. Truth is vanishing. War is coming.
Tom Cruise is eager to promote this premise since it reportedly cost almost $300 million to make.
This movie, it is an epic adventure. It's bigger than all the films. It has vivid characterizations. It has glorious, luxurious locations. And practical action. And the stuff that we've accomplished with that, the whole crew, has never been seen before on screen. We even built our own train to destroy it.
Listen to me. The world's coming after you. His fate is written.
And you would think an epic adventure like this would be the perfect fit for IMAX cinemas. With its big screen, it's one of the main attractions for cinemagoers. But this is where trouble comes along. See, in North America, Mission Impossible only got 1 week of the IMAX experience. And that is because the other big game in town beat Cruise to the punch in reserving the theaters.
You've no idea the power I represent. We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer tells the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer. He's one of the minds behind atom bombs. And to turn this story of science into Hollywood spectacle, Nolan booked the money-making theaters for the first 3 weeks of its run. IMAX CEO Rich Gelfand said he was sorry that they couldn't house both movies. But since Nolan was using and promoting special IMAX cameras, he had a special place in their hearts.
Because this is the most important thing that ever happened in the history of the world.
Gelfand added that he hoped Mission Impossible will come back after Oppenheimer completes its 3-week run.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world? It knows your story.
Cruise was reportedly angry with the way his studio has handled the booking of his movie. And this comes to show that in this day and age of blockbuster cinema, you need a theater to fit your needs. And more importantly, good strategies to secure it before your competition does.
Your life will always matter more to me than my own.
The Marvel Universe is one of the most famous brands around the globe. The documentary Stan Lee looks at the man responsible for a good percentage of that mythology. But the film itself dives deep into some controversy.
Camera wrap on the creator of Iron Man, Mr. Stan Lee.
Hi, I'm Stan Lee, editor of the Marvel Comics Group of superhero comic magazines.
Stan Lee wanted to be a novelist like Mark Twain. He instead settled for writing comic books. But along the way, the New York native ended up helping build the Marvel empire of today. The documentary named after him looks at his life and the journey of the company. It details how Lee rose from poverty to become one of the most successful names in comics.
There are so many bad things in the world. that if you can entertain somebody for a while, it's a good thing.
After entering the business in 1939, his approach brought new blood to the field over the following decades.
There was a time when life was a lot less complicated. Can I take your picture for the school paper?
Sure.
With the co-creation Spider-Man, Lee defied his boss by making the lead a teenager who has daily problems, like living paycheck to paycheck, studying to keep a scholarship, and looking after his aunt.
Wow.
A major pharmaceutical company has developed a way to suppress the mutant X gene permanently. They're calling it a cure.
Lee's other co-creation, X-Men, was his stance on racism and intolerance. That's why there's an array of characters with various mutant ethnicities. As said, these were co-creations, and that's why the documentary attracted the attention of Neil Kirby. He's the son of Jack Kirby, who was the artist that came up with the design of most of the famous characters. Neil's reaction is part of an ongoing debate in Marvel fandom. Who came up with what, and which parts of the characters? By the 2000s, Kirby's name began showing up in the movie adaptations of the comics. But mind you, a good number of these superheroes had been around since the 1960s.
We need a way to locate and intercept that object.
What is it?
We were hoping you could tell us.
Kirby's son asks if Lee is responsible for all of them as he claimed. But now with both men dead, what's left behind is a comic book franchise that has so far grossed billions of dollars, and a case of Rashomon that may never be solved.
Disney has teamed up with Lego and a group of artists to celebrate its 100 years. It's a project that highlights some of the most beloved Disney characters in a setting unique to each artist's style.
Once a humble animation company, now a multinational mass media and entertainment conglomerate. That's Disney. And this is Lego's way of honoring its 100 years. A brand new Disney castle that includes references from 14 classic Disney films. And it will also be accompanied by 4 murals made by different artists. For now, only this one has been unveiled. It belongs to London-based artist Lakwena Makaiva. It stands on one side of what's meant to represent a castle window.
So designing with Lego bricks in mind was really interesting because it's kind of like a pixel. You know, each brick is almost like a pixel. So I just had to bear in mind that like the lines, the patterns couldn't be too detailed. They needed to work with the scale of the Lego brick.
Makaiva brought her kids along to enjoy the mural too. She says as a family they enjoy watching Disney movies, a habit she's had since she was a child herself. Makaiva also gives credit to these films for sparking her imagination to become an artist. That's why it was important for her to pay tribute to some of her favourite Disney characters.
And probably my favourite character from the mural is Winnie the Pooh. I love Winnie the Pooh. There's nice memories for me as a child. I used to visit my uncle's house, which was next to the Ashdown Forest, which is where Winnie the Pooh was kind of set, or where it was inspired by that forest. We used to play Pooh sticks, so there's a nice connection there between the mural and my own kind of personal history.
Families also got to take part in the construction of the other murals imagined by artists. There's one more event planned for later this month in New York. Both brands hope this activity will bring together fans of all ages to celebrate.
The 1958 classic Touch of Evil was tailor-made specifically for film star Charlton Heston. But along the way, it gave film noir a sense of epic and kept its waning spirit alive. And in our movie almanac, Alican explores how it also reopened the gates of Hollywood for Outcast director Orson Welles.
Touch of Evil tells a tale of corruption within law enforcement. It stars Charlton Heston and Janet Leigh. Their co-star also happens to be their director, Orson Welles. And he uses a unique camera style and a jazzy Henry Mancini score to ante up the intrigue. But Welles wasn't even supposed to make the picture. The last time he sat in a director's chair for a US-backed project was in 1948. And he had since been making films as an outcast auteur abroad. It was Heston who suggested Welles direct the movie. The studio was reluctant. After all, this was the man who made the classic, yet controversial Citizen Kane, which criticized US media moguls.
Mike, do you realize this is the very first time we've been together in my country?
But with 1946's The Stranger, Welles had also proved he could do quite well within the conventional Hollywood system.
Mike, what happened?
That car that just passed us exploded.
Welles finally came on board for Touch of Evil. His draft of the script was written in just 10 days, and he decided to put an emphasis on racism, a topic dear to his heart. The filming took place in Venice, California, after author Aldous Huxley told Welles how the town had, quote, decayed significantly. After the movie's wrap, however, Welles was denied control in its post-production. And when Touch of Evil was released, Heston reportedly wrote in his journal that the picture had brilliance, without any dull shots, but lamented that it didn't hold together as a story.
All right, is that it? I told you I got something to show you. Family, your good name, nothing's been touched by all this.
Well, Captain, I'm afraid this is finally something you can't talk your way out of.
Contemporary reviews say the Welles-related bits of the movie, like camera and actor direction, lifted close to the pinnacle of film noir. After Touch of Evil, Welles went back to Europe, but the film did enough to show that his return to Hollywood could perhaps have been permanent, had the studio not interfered with his work. After all, it was them who called Welles back.
How could you arrest me here? This is my country.
This is where you're going to die.
There wasn't no Miss Vargas. That was just to turn you around. I don't want to shoot you in the back.
The last portrait Austrian painter Gustav Klimt made before his death will soon go under the hammer. And when it does, it could become the most expensive painting ever sold in Europe.
It's called Lady with a Fan, and it depicts a mystery woman against a resplendent, China-influenced backdrop with dragons and lotus blossoms. The painting now awaits its new owner at Sotheby's, London.
It was found on the easel in his studio after his sudden death in 1918, and it was acquired very soon after by a very good friend of his, Erwin Böhler, whose family kept it until it was acquired by the great collector Rudolf Leopold in Vienna. It was last sold at auction in 1994 here at Sotheby's, and it actually sold for a world record price of $11 million.
But what makes this painting so special?
Gustav Klimt is celebrated primarily for his portraits of women, and amongst those pictures, this is one of the greatest from his mature period, filled with light and motifs of Chinese and Asiatic origin. It's an extraordinary example of Klimt's work.
One that's expected to break an auction record.
We're expecting it to reach in the region of £65 million on the hammer. This places it amongst the very most expensive pictures ever sold in Europe, but it actually isn't the greatest amount ever achieved by Klimt. In 2006, The Woman in Gold was sold for $135 million. And so this places it at a very, very high level, but well within Klimt's upper price range.
Klimt's painting is the highlight of Sotheby's summer sale of modern and contemporary art, which also includes Giacometti, Magritte, and more. The artworks are set to go under hammer on June 27.
That's it for this episode of Showcase. I'm Esra Dürüst from me and the whole team here in Istanbul. Thanks for watching and bye for now.